Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the Fawn Pod, the Fawn Cast. It's friends occasionally not disagreeing. This is Cody again, and I am here with another installment of my James Bond 60th anniversary summer watch through. If you've been following me on this series so far this summer, we've been trying to get through all the Bond movies. We are really only about a third of the way there, believe it or not. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8th movie we have watched so far, and it is called Diamonds Are Forever. This one was interesting to me because Sean Connery did come back for one more installment after he didn't want to do On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So we have a familiar face back playing Bond, and this also marks the departure of Connery in 1971. And in 2 years here, 1973, we're going to pick up next with Roger Moore's entry into the Bond pantheon here. And his movies are often ridiculed, I know, from maybe more of the science fiction-y aspect of it, how crazy they get. But he's going to come back for quite a few movies. We'll check him out here coming up. But today we'll talk about Diamonds Are Forever, which has that famous theme music as well, if you know that one. Okay. Let's see what we got here for you today. Taking a look at our same categories that we've been grading on all summer: the title, the theme, the portrayal of Bond, the women of the movie, the villains, the plot, and the action. I will say that this one was really interesting watching as well because it scored very well in categories that some of the other movies haven't scored well, and also scored fairly poorly in some categories that the other movies did well in. So this is kind of like a reverse movie almost in some ways, which is a shame because if a few things had been changed in this could have been an even better movie than it was. But was it good enough to be a classic, or is this going to be relegated to be labeled crap? Our magic score again is 70 out of 100. That's an average movie, if you will. 70 would be like a C minus in school. And well, let's get into this one. We'll start in the same order we always do, which is to take a look at the title first. This one's called Diamonds Are Forever. It is also obviously the name of the theme song for this one, so maybe we can talk about both of those together here. 5 points for title and 10 points for the theme. The music in this movie is, to me, one of the more iconic Bond themes. Listening to it here, it didn't come across quite as powerful as I remembered it being in my head. It has Shirley Bassey as the singer in this one again, and you would know her best again here from Goldfinger, which was the third movie we checked out in this series. The Diamonds Are Forever theme is great. Showcases her voice yet again. It's not quite as good as Goldfinger, I don't believe. So for that reason, this is about a 9 out of 10 for me. It's still iconic. It's still one of those ones that really sits with you. Her voice is just, man, I should really look into what else she performed in her career, because when she sings these two Bond themes that she does, they're fantastic. So 9 out of 10 on the theme. As far as the title of this one, Diamonds Are Forever, I mean, Diamonds Are Forever, diamonds are a girl's best friends, just kind of one of those cliche phrases. I don't know that it has anything to do with the plot necessarily, considering they're stealing diamonds to build a giant space laser. Also decorate a cat's collar with them. I don't know. The title just didn't seem to sync up with what this movie was actually about. So it's great that it provides the theme song title, I guess. But in terms of the movie, So 3 out of 5 for the title on this one, but a 9 out of 10 for the theme. So not bad. Taking a look at the people in this movie and the actors and the characters here, let's start with Sean Connery. I actually thought Sean Connery, after taking the last movie off and coming back in this one, did a pretty good job. He felt and looked more relaxed than he had in like the last movie, You Only Live Twice. He seemed to hit his chops. His action was on par. His lines were on par. His timing and his pacing for delivery of all of those was on par. He really did a good job here. It seemed to be one of his better performances, which is kind of odd, I guess. Maybe the time off did him good, but I put this as a tie for his second best performance of the entire run so far. So I gave him a 13 out of 15 on his portrayal of Bond in this one, Diamonds Are Forever. So our goodbye to Sean Connery here is on a high note, 13 out of 15. The women in this movie, the main lady here is a character named Tiffany Case, and this is portrayed by Jill St. John, who I knew as a kid from the Batman TV show, where she played one of Catwoman's hench women, I guess, if you will, I believe, in an episode. And she is a very, very beautiful lady. Her hairstyle is kind of unique, in that it's just kind of like the beehive bun type style of hair, but messier on the sides. And looking at some pictures of her after I saw her in the movie here, I started Googling some more pictures of her, and it kind of seemed to almost be like the hairstyle she kept throughout most of her life, which is definitely a dated hairstyle. So that was kind of interesting to see. But in terms of beautiful, yes, she's got the body, she's got the face, she's got it all. She's pretty good. In terms of what they let her do in this movie, well, she's kind of played as almost like a bumbling fool at times. She does have her own ideas, and she messes up a sequence towards the end, plot wise, without realizing it. And she does have some ideas for her and Bond always, though. And even at the end of the movie, she's still coming up with new ideas and hatching new schemes for them. So she has some stuff to do in this movie. Now, there are parts where she is absent again. There's another lady that Bond meets in the middle just for a little tiny bit of the movie called Plenty O'Toole. We'll talk more about that in a second, but that lady was extremely built, shall we say, to put it kindly. Plenty, yes. But Tiffany's great. Jill St. John, pretty good performance here. It definitely was somebody who seemed to be comfortable in their own skin in this film, revealing quite a bit of herself, not indecently, but quite a bit of herself. And, based on some of the other pictures I saw from her other roles she had in her career, this seemed to be something that carried with her throughout her career. She must have been somewhat of a sex pot or bombshell in her day. So, though she's extremely beautiful, not quite given enough to do on this one, but she's going to get an 11 out of 15, which again is our third highest score. And so we're off to a good start here. We have third highest for the women's score, third highest for the Sean Connery score, second highest for the music score. And let's talk about the villains in this one. The villains out of 10 points. There must have been some problems behind the scenes with this, because we get Blofeld back again, and it's played by yet another different actor. Now, I have to say, as somebody who likes the James Bond pantheon, if you will, and somebody who has been watching these movies straight through, it's a little disheartening, if I'm being honest, that through the first 1, 2, 3, 4 movies, we don't know who the leader of Spectre is. We finally find out in You Only Live Twice that it's Ernst Blofeld, and we have Donald Pleasance again playing him in that movie. Okay. Then we have the next movie, mind you, the very next movie, the Lazenby one, we have Blofeld back again, this time played by Telly Savalas. And now in the very next movie, we get Blofeld back again, this time played by Charles Gray. And I think just as a viewer, that's a lot to take. And oh no, man, they could have had somebody else maybe step up to be number one for Spectre at this point. having 3 movies in a row with 3 different people playing this character just, I don't know, it cheapens the character. I think I as a viewer care less and less and less about the character I'm probably supposed to care quite a bit about because he's James Bond's adversary. And just the fact that it's a third different actor for the 3rd movie in a row, I care less about this guy. Additionally, he doesn't do a ton in this movie. We'll talk more about in the plot here, but he clones himself, or if not cloning, I guess we have plastic facial reconstruction that's taking place where there's essentially 3 Blofelds. Bond kills one right before the opening credits, a second one later on in the movie, and then the third one presumably escapes or dies in a fire. I guess they don't really specify. We'll talk about that in a minute. So Blofeld himself, very unremarkable in this movie. I gave him a 6 out of 10, but hold on, because this movie does feature some pretty good henchmen, like we talked about with Odd Job and Number Two and some other things here with Largo and some of these other movies. There is a pair of gentlemen called Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd in this film, and they really only ever talk to each other. They're extremely socially awkward looking. They are very devious with what they do in terms of killing Bond in a coffin in the incinerator at the funeral home, to some other ideas that they have here. And they just kind of genuinely come off as creepy. And they're going to be featured in the kind of fake out ending at the end here of the movie as well, which we've had in a few of these earlier movies also. But they were actually more interesting to me. I kind of wish we had seen even more of them. They just look like people who would blend into the background. And, you know, if you were someplace publicly, you probably would look at them and not glance back because they look very unremarkable. To the point where maybe they look, again, so unremarkable you may actually take note of them, I suppose. But anyway, it was done really well in the film because I kept keeping track myself. I don't know why I was keeping track of this, but there's no point in the entire movie where Bond actually sees these two. Their paths cross several times, but the cinematography shows us that Bond and Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd never actually physically cross paths, or visually cross paths, I should say, since they do, like I said, try to kill him at one point earlier in the movie and one point at the end of the movie. So that's played pretty well, and actually kind of makes that last scene of the movie, which I'll talk about again in a second here, a little more creepy because if you were paying attention, Bond has never seen these people throughout the whole film. And it was just kind of a cool film technique that they used where finally they come face to face at the end. But so because they were so good as henchmen, we're going to bump the villain score up to a 7 out of 10. You know, if they had their role increased and you actually had, you could have taken Blofeld right out of this, or even reduced his role more and just had Wint and Kidd be more of the villains. I think this would have been a more compelling film. But 7 out of 10 is going to be the score that goes down in the books for this one, because the henchmen were better than the boss. So there we go. Okay, so doing pretty well so far. And unfortunately, I have to stress so far on this one. It probably would be in like the top 3 movies based on just those categories. Here's the problem. Connery, Jill St. John, Charles Gray, Wint, Kidd, whoever played them, I didn't look their names up, Shirley Bassey, all do a remarkable job in this movie. So it's a shame that the movie itself is not very good. Amongst our higher scores on all those categories, but the plot of this one is a hot mess. It's a combination of a hot mess and events that I just didn't care about as the viewer of this film. So let's briefly talk about what happens here in Diamonds Are Forever. As I mentioned, kind of cool opening scene. We have James Bond attacking Blofeld, basically boils him in some superheated mud, toxic mud or something like that. And you think that Blofeld is dead. So that was a shocking but kind of cool intro to the movie. And then we get into this diamond smuggling sequence. So I'm going to attempt to go through this really quickly to show you how wackadoodle this plot is in this movie. We have Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, who I said were fantastic, killing diamond smugglers. Okay. Then we have Bond impersonating, there we go, a diamond smuggler. Bond goes to the Netherlands. This is where he meets Tiffany Case for the first time. And the guy that he is pretending to be shows up. So Bond kills him and takes his ID card. And then what their plan is, they're going to put the diamonds inside this guy's corpse to get them through customs back to the United States. Now, I don't know that it's actually said at any point why they're taking the diamonds to the United States or why Bond needs these diamonds taken someplace to begin with. But regardless, this is the plan. They're going to put the diamonds inside the corpse because it was the only way they could get across the border. Kind of weird, but okay, kind of fun, I guess, at the same time. He gets to the United States where he meets Felix, who is his CIA buddy who pops up once in a while in these, and basically goes to Las Vegas where they stop at Morton Slumber's crematorium and funeral home. And at this point, the diamonds are basically, what do we want to say here? The body is cremated and they put all the ashes in the urn, which includes the diamonds. And then it gets kind of weird because this is where they attempt to have Bond cremated himself by putting him in the giant furnace. This is by Winton Kidd. And he's only saved because another smuggler by the name of Shady Tree, yeah, pretty good name, right? Stops when he finds out that the diamonds in the body were fake. Okay, you follow me on all this? So they're going to smuggle diamonds out of the country inside an actual body of a guy that Bond killed and impersonated. And then when we get to the fact that the body is burned, we have fake diamonds in there. And this is apparently all to call out the smuggler, Shady Tree. Yeah, you got it. Meanwhile, the CIA is going to be shipping the real diamonds, and Bond is going to a casino. Most of this movie is set in Las Vegas, I should point out, which is another unique setting here. And they're going to go to the White House. That's WHYTE, the White House, named after the reclusive billionaire by the name of Willard White, where Shady Tree is also the stand-up comedian at the casino. Whoo! Okay. Shady Tree gets killed after his act on stage by Winton Kidd. They didn't know that the diamonds were fake. Then Bond is playing at the casino, and he meets this lady, Plenty O'Toole, who is very well endowed, I might add, and gambles a little bit with her and then takes her back to his room. She lasts about a minute in the movie before they are... the henchmen of Spectre here basically throw her out the window, and instead of dying, she fell into a pool. Okay. And then Bond has to spend the rest of the night with Tiffany, who is in on all this because she also is kind of working for Blofeld and Spectre, and he tells her that she needs to go to Circus Casino to get the real diamonds. Okay. So come to find out that O'Toole was mistaken for Tiffany, and Tiffany sees this, so she realizes she's in danger, and so she joins Bond essentially at this point. All right, here we go. The real diamonds are given to the casino manager, Bert Saxby, who goes to this kind of secret facility where Bond goes to. And we find out that there is a laser refraction specialist, Dr. Metz, and Bond, infiltrates this facility, again by impersonating someone, and they catch him, and he escapes this by stealing a moon buggy because for some reason that's never explained, They are filming a moon scene, like the moon landing, inside this science facility, complete with like the flag and the astronauts who are moving very slowly. So slowly, I might add, that when Bond is escaping and running across the set, they still don't break character as astronauts to try to stop James Bond. They let him pass by because they're purposely moving in slow motion like an astronaut would, even as these guards and everything are running across the set between them. It does come across as funny, but it makes zero sense whatsoever. Okay, we get a high-speed police chase through Las Vegas with the police chief. Bond and Tiffany escape. Yay. All right, up to the mysterious White House, to the top floor in the penthouse, where we have supposedly this guy, White, that no one has seen in 3 years, and he finds not one but two Blofelds up at the top that can use a little voice box changer, essentially, to sound like White. This is how they've been using him in their schemes, while the real White is kidnapped, basically, down below. Bond kills one of the Blofelds. Unfortunately, turns out to be the wrong real Blofeld, or so we're told. And he's knocked out. He is put into a pipe that is being placed into the ground by some heavy machinery. He escapes this by like jamming a machine and using it to ride its way out of a big long pipeline. Comes up through a manhole cover, all kind of a bizarro sequence here. And then Bond uses another voice box to call Blofeld, and he finds out where White is actually being kept. He has to fight some bikini wearing bodyguards, which I guess are Blofeld's bodyguards, but it almost comes across as they're saying it's White's bodyguards, by the name of Bambi and Thumper. Kind of an entertaining little fight between the three of them, because Bond basically gets his ass handed to him by these two ladies. But eventually he does kind of drown them, or, holds their head underwater until they say where White is at. So he doesn't kill them. They rescue White, and he joins their team because, of course, someone has kidnapped him for, sounds like, up to 3 years here. And basically we find out that the big danger here is that all of these diamonds are going to be used in a giant satellite, which are going to refract a laser down onto the Earth, where they can essentially destroy anything that they're pointed at, because lasers. So Blofeld uses, just as an example here, to try to test out the laser. He basically destroys nuclear weapons in China, the Soviet Union, the United States, and then basically says we're going to have an auction to see who basically becomes the nuclear power of the world. Otherwise, I'll destroy all the other ones. Meanwhile, there's this giant typical villain map that was in Blofeld's base at the top of the White House, which they recognize, or White rather recognizes, that there is something on the map that is not a property he owns, and that is a oil platform off the coast of California. And so they go out there, and essentially Bond finds out that this is Blofeld's HQ. So there is a cassette that you put in to run the satellite controls, and there is one that Blofeld puts in essentially to send the satellite its instructions to begin to destroy the United States. There is a little chance here where Tiffany hands Bond the new cassette to eliminate those directions. Bond successfully puts it in, slides the old cassette to Tiffany. Tiffany doesn't really know that he changed it, so she accidentally switches it back. That's the little snafu we talked about earlier. Meanwhile, Bond sets off a red balloon from the thing, which is noticed by the CIA, and so the CIA comes in with helicopters to try to blow the place up with big guns and missiles and stuff. And meanwhile, as this is all going on, the base is starting to go down, and no one can get to the satellite control to turn off the satellite from blowing up the United States. Blofeld tries to escape in a little tiny mini sub, and Bond overpowers the guy running the crane who was helping put it in the water for Blofeld. And Kind of a funny scene here, I do have to admit. Bond basically pulls the sub all the way back up onto the oil platform and uses it as a wrecking ball, essentially, Miley Cyrus style, smashing it repeatedly into the satellite control until they stop the detonation sequence or the laser from being fired, I guess, if you will. So kind of funny. And they leave Blofeld there. So I don't know if he's dead or captured or if he's just going to come back again. They don't really go into that, which is also kind of a weird plot point because at this point you would think um, Bond would probably be pretty concerned with this guy getting away again, wouldn't you think? But I guess not. So there's that. Well, I mean, to be fair, it was blowing up at the time. All right. And then end of the movie, Bond and Tiffany head off on an ocean liner. She ponders how they could get diamonds back to Earth, except no, not the end, because Wint and Kidd, I was wondering where they were because they weren't on the oil platform, show up as in-room service people, basically with food to give to Bond and Tiffany. There's a bomb and a cake. There's a fight that takes place here, and pretty nice special practical effects, I should say, here when Bond basically starts Mr. Kidd on fire, and eventually Mr. Kidd has to jump overboard all the way down to the ocean to put himself out. And then Mr. Wint, he ties the bomb to and pushes him overboard as well. When he gets into the water, the bomb goes off, explodes. So at least Mr. Wint is dead. Mr. Kidd maybe as well. We don't know. But that's the plot of this movie. So, I mentioned some of the earlier ones. I like when the plot is a little tight and has less locations. This one didn't have too many locations, or at least they were relatively close proximity. But the plot of this one's just all over the place. Like, we're using diamonds for lasers. We're smuggling, and they're not even the real diamonds. There's just a whole chain of events that take place that kind of you shake your head at and say, why did this all have to be here? So, plot of this one, 14 out of 30. This gets the lowest score of any movie so far, just because why? I mean, a diamond smuggling film could have been fun, but this just took that to like 10 steps further, and they were not 10 steps that were needed, unfortunately. Action in this movie, okay. It's a couple steps down from some of the last movies we've had. It's maybe a smidge better than some of the early films we saw, still with, again, explosions and missiles and not a lot of fist fights in this one. A couple little struggles here and there. No big set pieces I didn't think that were memorable, like the skiing sequences or the toboggan sequences of the last one. So only 11 out of 15 on this one for the action. Favorite line in this one was when he met the lady Plenty O'Toole at the craps table. It's kind of a double joke here because this lady is literally like falling out of her top, essentially. And she says, "My name's Plenty," and oh my gosh. Bond says something like clearly or something like it. But the next line is my favorite one because she said Plenty O'Toole as her full name. And Bond says back to her, "Oh, you're named after your father, perhaps." With your tool being your, I shouldn't have to explain it to you, but your man parts. So plenty of man parts. Oh my gosh. Terrible stuff. Anyway, we're going to add this up today. We got 11, 14, 7, 11, 13, 9, and 3, despite good performances by the Bond lady, Sean Connery himself, the theme being good, and the villains being okay. The plot is so bad in this one, it's going to drag it down a little bit. And unfortunately, it's going to drag it down to a grand total of 68. And based on our criteria, below 70, this is crap, people. Diamonds Are Forever. Good elements that somehow adds up to something that's terrible. So I got to say this one's crap. This is tied for our 6th best movie out of 8, which is not saying very much so far. So not great. All right, well, that's Diamonds Are Forever. As mentioned here, we're going to head into the 70s further with Roger Moore coming up. We got Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun, Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, and Octopussy all coming up with Roger Moore after that. Then we have the non-Eon film again here with Sean Connery coming back for that one. That'll be controversial when we get there. And then we have Timothy Dalton coming here for a few, and then, of course, Pierce Brosnan. We'll continue on from there, but that's a long ways out yet. All right, hope you enjoyed Diamonds Are Forever. I know I enjoyed parts of it, but not the whole thing. Take care, everybody. We'll see you later. This has been another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing.